Hi again, everybody. Dave Stevens here, kicking off your Friday, and what a way that we are going to end it. We started out this week, we had John Rocker on, very controversial. Then we went to the extreme, to the music world, and had Madison Ward from Madison and Mama Bear, and that was a really awesome conversation that we had. So with other things we got for you, well, Troy Geary is joining me now. Troy, how you doing in Minnesota today, brother?
It's a great day outside, and I'm excited for the show today.
Yeah, it's a great show, and our first guest today is a guy that I've known for a few years. We met in Minnesota, and I've admired him all of my life as far as where he's been from, what he's overcome, and the places he's been to, and now where he's taking his clients. And it's so funny that Leigh and I have become friends over the years. Just this little dude without legs, and Leigh has presented me awards. The one over my shoulder I got at the Super Bowl, and we stay in touch. We talk. He gives me advice. He's been a great mentor and a great friend, and just the chance to get together from coast to coast. This is one of my favorite pictures, Leigh adjusting my tie. But joining me now is the man, the myth, the legend, and of course, a guy that I like to call friend, Mr. Leigh Steinberg. So Leigh, thanks for joining Geary, Stein, and Stevens today.
Well, it sounds like a law firm, but I'm excited to be with you.
And Leigh, I know we go back in our friendship. It really is very special to me that you've become a mentor, and and it's funny because we don't know this, and I saw this, and I actually sent it to you a couple of times. Is we have the same desk. That's, if you look over my shoulder, you'll see the dude from Star Wars and the award and a picture of you and I. And then if you look over your shoulder at your desk, there's a picture of you and I in the lower corner, and the little dude from Star Wars. So I thought that's funny that our worlds collide. Yes, there we go. So what's the inspiration between the child on your desk?
Oh, I love Yoda. I love the adult Yoda, so its next incarnation is the baby Yoda. But as the repository of all wisdom and answers to every existential question, who could be better than Yoda? And the Force be with us.
Who is somebody that inspired you throughout your life and that are grateful for? Speaking of inspiration.
When I was growing up, the civil rights movement was going on. So Martin Luther King was a great inspiration in the way he talked about hope and social change. I had studied Mahatma Gandhi, and it was my father who inculcated us with two core values. One was treasure relationships, especially family. And the second was try to make a meaningful difference in the world and help people who could not help themselves. And he had a collateral to that, which is when you're looking for someone to make a change, as minor as picking a piece of trash up off the floor and as major as racism or combating climate change, the tendency is to wait for they or them, the amorphous they, older people, political figures, to solve the problem. And he used to look at me and he'd say, the they is you, son. You're the they. If you wait, you could wait forever. So I've tried to live based on that and to feel the pain of others and make a difference in the world.
And Leigh, we haven't seen each other in a while, and I know you just recently lost your mother, and my condolences. What an amazing woman and inspiration she was to you. But I know now you are a champion of health opportunities. I think you've had over 150 stem cell treatments and hyperbaric chambers and things like that mainstream society doesn't get those opportunities. And I'm wondering, why are you championing those causes? Where do we stand? And what do we got to do to get health care to realize there are alternative medicines and treatments that can make a difference in people's lives?
So we're in the midst of a massive biomed transformation where new technologies, new research are changing the way that we'll view preventative health and health in general. And I looked at it from a couple of standpoints. From an athletic context, most games come down to last quarter to last drive. So is there a way to stimulate productivity and performance at critical junctures in a game to tilt the competitive balance? Second of all, because of the cap systems, the backups now to star players are not just a tad less talented, they're dramatically and precipitously less talented. So losing a key player can alter a whole drive. So the question is, can we return players to service quicker? The third modality I looked at was the specter of concussion and brain injury, and whether or not we can rebut the presumption that the brain only gets worse, it never gets better. And so the question is, could we, through neuroplasticity, heal a concussed brain? And I'm finding ways to do that. And then everything we validate in the athletic context goes to all the rest of the population. So you and I can live longer with better cognitive health, with less pain, and have a lifespan much longer than what was before. So this is hyperbaric oxygen. It's stem cells. It's a process called light stem, a brain process called RTMS, another one with Nestri, which is brain training, all based on neuroplasticity. That the exciting new news is you can restore some of the neurons in your brain. And I'm going to take these concepts into pro sports, collegiate sports, and then some of it will make a major difference in the lives of all of us.
Okay, you've been outspoken about the Rooney Rule. What do you think needs to be done about that, and how can they change it so that more people actually get opportunity and it's not just a formality?
Well, I think the first key is to create a pool at a younger age of minority executives for front office positions and coaches, and to make that pool as broad as possible. In the same way that when it came time to lift the prejudice towards blacks playing quarterbacks, we needed to have blacks athletes in high school and college doing it. So we need a greater pool and to stimulate it at an earlier age. And then we have to make sure that they get opportunities. So the way that head coaches get hired is from the coordinators from the best and winning teams. So you have to focus on that level too. And so we need to be more aggressive, just in the sense that we've gone backwards, not forwards, in terms of the number of minority head coaches. We're starting to see a mild breakthrough in terms of positions. The Oakland Raiders just hired a African-American woman as their president. But we need to create this pool and actively recruit. And then you'll have such viable candidates that they'll get hired, and we'll break it the same way we broke the black quarterback sort of pre-prejudice.
Leigh Steinberg joining us, and Leigh, I mean, your roster, it's so amazing. You've a record 8 NFL first round picks, your mentorship with Warren Moon, obviously Patrick Mahomes, Tua. I mean, you continue to go and continue to mentor and change lives. I mean, why are you still doing it? Why aren't you retired? Why aren't you enjoying playing golf and just enjoying kids and grandkids and things like that? I mean, it's still amazing to see you're more relevant than you were then, because now you make more of an impact with your players. You're teaching them, you're nurturing them. You're not like the others that get, it's kind of like lawyers. Lawyers have a bad name because of how most lawyers are. Super agents have that. I'll say it, you don't have to, a Drew Rosenhaus approach to certain things, which gives you a bad taste. So why are you still doing it?
Well, if we go back to those core values, there are still community and charitable programs that I can do, that the athletes can do, that make a difference. We We can deal with sex trafficking and domestic violence and the environment. So on the environment, I created a Sport and Green Alliance with sustainable technology and wind, solar, recycling, resurfacing, and water to take to arena, practice fields, and stadia around the country to drop carbon emissions and energy costs and to transform them into teaching platforms so millions of fans can see a waterless urinal or a solar panel and think about how they put those into their own lives. On the education front, we're holding an Agent Academy in October in Las Vegas, and this is the creation of a new generation of sports professionals that have ethics and values and are specifically trained. So what they do is they get the opportunity to actually recruit a real player and his family. And they get the opportunity to negotiate a contract. Half of them play general managers and half of them play player agents. They get the opportunity to set up a charitable foundation, to do branding and marketing, to figure out NILs, a whole variety of other skill sets. So you want to keep teaching that next generation and mentor them so they can be effective and use sports to make a difference.
Well, it's tremendous that you're still kicking after all these years, and I do miss not seeing you in person, but it's nice of you to have joined us. And I got to ask you though, with all the changes, I've seen recently too, where now you're praising other agents for the way they're negotiating, like recently with Jeffrey Lurie and things like that. Like it is better for the athletes. So what's it going to take for these other owners to see that, to follow, maybe have less issues? Because I know you're not flamboyant. You work behind the scenes. Your people are trained to look for the best interests of everybody involved. And it's not a big, let's talk through ESPN and do those kind of things. So, how is this new approach changing the structure for all agents?
So years ago, I realized that the battle of labor versus management was a sideshow in sports, and talked to owners about the fact that every time we do a bad, ugly public negotiation, it just pushes away fans. And if we have collective bargaining that's millionaires against billionaires, well, people can't relate to that. And what we ought to be doing is stimulating the brand. So in a sport like football, could we do new TV contracts? Could we exponentially increase TV money? Could we do an NFL network? Could we work with the internet and marketing and merchandising? Could we do new stadia with jumbo scoreboards and naming rights? And so the point was to make the pie bigger. And if I'm dealing with billionaires, the last thing in the world I ever want to do is put them up against a wall publicly and expect that that's going to achieve something. So players have short playing lives. So if we could take the focus off the negotiations that we do labor and management and put it on creating more interest and excitement in and around the sport and not have strikes and not have labor stoppages. And so the NFL, which is now dominating the country, it's not only the most popular sport, it's the most popular television show. And I think something like 91 of the top 100 top-rated television shows last year were sports, and most of them were football games. So to achieve that, you need to put the focus on the players on the field, put the focus on the excitement of the game, and have our work be very quiet.
All right, stay with us. We're going to take a break, pay some bills, but we are going to continue with Leigh. We're going to talk a little bit more about what the future holds for some of these contracts, some of the clauses that we've seen. But like I said, we got to pay some bills, so stay with us. here. Let me switch our cameras back here. I got too many cameras going on here. Leigh Steinberg joining us. And Leigh, before we get things started, do you get tired of people, coming up to you in airports and screaming, show me the money, and all the things that you've heard over the years that still to this day, some people don't even know that you're the basis of this movie.
Well, it's Cameron Crowe's great script, but he called me up in 1993 and asked if he could follow me around and get into the world for a feature that would focus on a sports agent. And so he started following me in 1993 to the draft where Drew Bledsoe was the first pick. And he came back to New York and then up to Boston when we had the press conference with Bill Parcells, and came to pro scouting days at SC and games and other things. And I told him lots of stories. And then my job as technical advisor was to vet the script to make sure that the willing suspension of disbelief that holds you in a motion picture, that the dialogue's not stilted, that the look's not wrong and obviously phony, didn't get broken. And then he sent me down to Phoenix for the Super Bowl with Cuba Gooding Jr., pretending he was a wide receiver and my client all week. He was hanging with Desmond Howard and Amani Toomer. And I actually had to show the quarterback in the film, played by Jerry O'Connell, how to throw a spiral because he had gone to NYU and they didn't have a football program. So it's been 25 years, but I still have that experience most of the time I go out in public where people say those 4 words. And look, here's the same thing I tell my athletes, guys. When you go out in public, you at that point are under a microscope. And if you don't want to be gracious and interactive with people, stay home.
Leigh, what did you think about the clause in Kyler Murray's contract that, well, they eventually pulled it, but the watching film clause that they had in there, and then after the backlash, they kind of decided to take that out?
I mean, from his standpoint, from the player's standpoint, it's sort of insulting because there's not a quarterback in the NFL who doesn't spend prodigious amounts of time studying film. And so to tell someone that you're giving a $40 million plus contract that he's obligated to study for 4 hours, well, he ought to study a lot more than that, but that's not in any contracts. It's just inherent in being franchise quarterback. And football's evolved into a game where it's all about the franchise quarterback, someone that you can win because of rather than with, someone you can build around for 10 to 12 years, and critically, someone who in times of crisis, in adversity, he's thrown a couple interceptions, the crowd's booing, the game's getting out of hand. What does he do now? Can he compartmentalize, adopt a quiet mind, and focus on elevating his level of play and taking a team to and through the Super Bowl? So the question as to whether or not that player for Arizona is that franchise quarterback, they had to settle before they ever negotiated the contract. So now to go back and say, oh, and incidentally, you have to study film, duh.
It's just crazy, especially something getting out like that, which, the Cardinals have had a tough couple of years with publicity and things like that anyway from the start, losing players. Larry Fitzgerald really didn't go out the way he should have gone out and things like that. So, but
Dave, that's the happiest of days. You've just made this deal that cements a generational wealth for this young player. This is a franchise moment. You're doing this for the fans. You're doing it for his teammates. It's as happy a moment as there is. And, incidentally, here's a jarring clause.
And you've been instrumental as far as continuing for the players to look out for their best interests. But I know it's very important to you that if they sign with you, they've got to give back to the community. They've got to learn that they've got to be humble and that they've got to make a difference and an impact off the field more than on. And I know that comes a lot from your parents and your father, but do you ever get that pushback from guys that, especially in this day and age, it's me, and it's like you got to knock them down, and like, how do you break that ego or that chip to realize that you need to do these things?
So first of all, we profile players and do research and interviews. Is this someone that's a self-starter? Is this someone with a giving heart? Is this someone that's going to be a role model? And I encourage them to go back to the high school community, set up a scholarship fund, work with the Boys and Girls Club or church, and lay down roots, and then go to the collegiate level where Troy Aikman endowed a full scholarship at UCLA, or Edgerrin James at the University of Miami. And then at the professional level, corral the leading business figures, political figures, and community leaders to help serve on a board that will execute a program. So that's work done, the former running back, putting the 200th single mother and her family into the first home they'll ever own by making a down payment and having it outfitted. It's athletes changing lives, and while they're doing it, learning non-athletic skills, and that they have a role to play. And it also sets the foundation for second career because you've got people out there networking and showing other skills.
Can you tell our viewers how the story about how you started your career as a sports agent?
Sure, Troy. So I went to UCLA my freshman year, but then up to Berkeley in the wild days of the 1960s. So, it was long hair and rock music and anti-Vietnam and a very different time. I was actually student body president, and the governor of California, who kept cracking down on the protests, was a man named Ronald Reagan. And so I learned everything I needed to learn about the art of negotiating from interacting with Governor Reagan during those crises. But I was a dorm counselor in an undergraduate dormitory, and they moved the freshman football team into the dorm, and one of the students was the quarterback, Steve Bartkowski. In 1975, he became the very first player picked in the first round of the NFL draft. So he asked me to represent him, and I had gotten out of law school in 74 and was traveling the world, and I had a number of job offers, but this came first. And there was a World Football League competing against the U.S. Against the NFL, and teams like the Shreveport Steamer and the Chicago Wind, and Bart signed the biggest contract in history of the NFL. So there really wasn't much of sports agentry then. There was no guaranteed right of representation. A team could just slam down the phone and say, we don't deal with agents. And Mike Brown of the Bengals was very happy to do that with me all the way in 1975. So this has all evolved over time, sort of creating a profession.
It's been an amazing journey too, to go where you come from. And again, you've got two wonderful sons, a beautiful daughter. When we talk about, I talk about my legacy, what my legacy is going to be. But for you, Leigh, you've done so much and you've impacted so much. What is your tombstone? What's going to be your legacy? What do you want people to remember you by?
Oh, gee, I'm not really thinking of that.
In a long time, way away.
When I think of Dave Stevens, for example, I think of you as one of my heroes, who's an inspiration, who's out there constantly showing people with limitations what they can do, not just focus on what they can't do, so that you're leaving that message. And I hope the message I'm leaving is that we all, in our own way, in our own time, can make a difference. And at the end of the day, here's how you're judged. Were you a good father? Were you a good son? Were you a good friend to people when it wasn't convenient to be a friend? Were you there for them in crisis? And did you feel the pain of other people? And did you try to help? And did you not just drive by? Did you stop and see what you could do. And basically, that's what I believe we're here for.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And I know you've kind of you've become almost the Anthony Bourdain of medical treatments and the things that you're willing to try and taste and do all those kind of things. So, as far as this health and wellness project, how soon is the website and what we're doing? I want to get involved with this and help you and teach and help to really do what you want to do. So, where does it stand and where is the future hold?
I think we'll launch later this fall. It's been an exploration. So everything that I talked about, I've done. I had 300 million stem cells put in. I've done 150 hyperbaric treatments. I've done 150 light stem. I've done 90 sessions of RTMS. I've done Nestry with Dr. Tommy Shavers. And I've tried it all because I wouldn't want to be in the situation of recommending something that simply doesn't work. And so we're just in the last stages of organizing this, and hopefully sometime in the fall we'll launch. And I believe we're going to look at medicine today in the same way that you and I look at medicine in the past, and we're going to say, wait a minute, did they actually put poison in someone's body to cure cancer? You mean they broke open someone's chest? I think we're going to move so far beyond this, and then the whole focus has to be on preventative. And I think you're going to see our kids live a long, long time, and hopefully we're there with them.
Legendary broadcaster Vin Scully just passed away. Do you have a story, Vin, you'd like to share?
Oh my God. So the Dodgers came to Los Angeles in 1958, and I was 9. And I fell in love immediately with the mellifluous tones and storytelling magic of Vin Scully. And it was an era of transistor radios. And most of the kids in Southern California fell in love with the Dodgers. I mean, we had the Lakers, and we had the Rams, but we hadn't had baseball like that. And they had Sandy Koufax and Maury Wills and all these amazing stars, and went to the World Series the second year. So every night before I went to bed, my parents would tell me, okay, time to go to bed. And I had a little transistor radio, and I would stick it under my pillow and turn it at a low volume. And I went to sleep for years listening to Vin Scully broadcasting the Dodgers very late at night. And everyone here did it. Now, the Dodgers marketed Southern California like it was Des Moines, Iowa, like it was a little town. And they had all these different nights. But the unifying factor for all of us was Vin Scully's voice. And, I can hear it now. And so a whole generation of us that grew up in Los Angeles, for him to be gone, it was like, if you can imagine Walter Cronkite, for those of you who are a little older, was the voice of America. And Vin Scully is a civic treasure. He's an institution. He's everything about my youth that I love.
And I was lucky. I guess Arizona, we didn't really have a major league team, so all we got were AM radio broadcasts of Vin Scully, and I got the Angels, so I'd have Ross and those guys. But Vin Scully was just like, "Hello, everybody, and welcome." And it just it was just one of those beautiful. He was the voice of baseball for almost 70 some odd 70 years, and it was just an honor to be around him. I told the story earlier this week where I was at the Metrodome at the World Series, and in those days I was on my crutches, and I'm coming down the stairs. If you remember the Metrodome, Lee, all those stairs down to the field, it was 44 long stairs, no access for a wheelchair, anybody with crutches. So I'm going down, and Vin is coming up, and he looks at me in that Vin Scully voice, and he's like, "Polio?" And I'm like, "No, sir, I was born without legs." And he looked at me and he goes, "Well, son, you've got arms like Steve Garvey." And he just kept walking. And it's just, those kind of moments that he just had that. He could bring in Shakespeare or Machiavelli or make these crazy analogies that tied it together. And it's just like, wow, this week God must have needed a basketball player like, from the Celtics and taking, a legend. And now we've got the voice gone. So it's been a really tough week in the world of sports.
It has, but we had him all these years and got to share. And as I said, I posted some things on social media, and the number of people who have posted that they listened late at night on a transistor radio.
Yeah.
It's evocative of another time when we were thrilled to have that voice. We're not sitting in front of a computer screen with sound and fast cutting all over us. At more leisurely pace to life. And you got to know all the other players in baseball because he did word pictures of them all. So it wasn't, he wasn't sitting there talking about the way the curveball, you throw a curveball, he was humanizing the sport.
Yeah, and analytics don't even. That'd be another half hour if we talked about that. But it's been great to have you here with us for a little bit of time, Leigh. Thanks. I know you're busy. And as far as what you've got going, you've got the Wednesday Words of Wisdom, which people can find on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere that just follow Leigh Steinberg or Steinberg Sports. What else you got going, cooking here coming up?
So. We have the Health and Wellness Project. We have an Agent Academy. I'm early in a couple of chapters into my next book because the Agent, my last one, which was a New York Times bestseller, leaves off to 2013. And at that point, I'm sort of struggling with alcohol coming back. And it leaves off there. So it doesn't have, I want to do a book about recovery that gives people hope and inspiration, and then talk about the rebuilding of the firm, and then talk about some life lessons that I've aggregated over the years that hopefully can be of use to other people's lives. And so, more books, more speeches, and then guess what? Training camp just opened in football. So we've got a whole exciting group of players, and we've aggregated under Steinberg Sports and Chris Kavitz, our CEO, we've aggregated a whole series of practices. So we now have a baseball practice. We have a basketball practice. We've got agents all across the country, and from Seattle to San Francisco to Baltimore to South Carolina to Kansas City. And so it's just building and growing.
Well, I'm excited, especially to see that Dave Stevens chapter in the new book. So don't forget your little buddy here when all is going. So it could be a short chapter, but we'll see you hopefully in the near future. If not, we'll get together at the Super Bowl in my home state of Arizona. I can't wait to do that. I've got stuff going on with my charity and everything, so our worlds are going to cross. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. Troy, final thoughts?
Appreciate you joining us today. I know you're a busy man, and good luck to all your clients this year.
It's been my pleasure, and I hope people tune into the show because it's always interesting, sometimes provocative, and always something that's uplifting.
Oh, thank you so much, Leigh. All right. For Troy and myself and Leigh Steinberg, I'm Dave Stevens. We'll catch you next week. Chuck Knobloch joining us. And Troy, you got a comedian dude coming on too, right?
Yeah, Seth Herzog, SNL.
All right. It's going to be a great week. All right. Have a great weekend. Or if you're hearing this, I hope you had a great weekend. This is Dave Stevens. Stay safe. We love you. Gary, Stein, and Stevens. That's it.